Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Cruz at MMA. We got a fun one for you today. My guest is a former UFC fighter, and he is a current star in the BKFC going into battle March 21st, taking on Asndrew Angelcore, headlining a big Philadelphia BKFC fight card. He is Dustin, the disciple Pague. Dustin, what's up, my friend?
What's up, Carlo? Thanks for having me on, brother.
Absolutely, man. You know, I think it's so cool to talk with you because you've been doing this for such a long time. You've really been doing combat sports before it was cool. You know, people don't realize 15, 20 years ago, MMA was considered human cockfighting. It wasn't legal at every single place. And, you know, the rules wasn't there. It wasn't as culturally accepted. During the first couple of amateur contests or pro contests, do you have any stories of maybe fighting in bars, barns, mystery opponents, bad medicals? Do you have anything crazy?
Oh my gosh, dude. I have a list of them. I fought at the show. I think it was called the Show Place in Richmond, Virginia. This was my amateur days, probably 2005, 2006. And you're just in this giant dirty warehouse fighting in a boxing ring, full MMA rules. I was amateur, not getting paid, but it was still elbows, knees, full unified rules. And the one time I'm warming up in the back, just hitting mitts, and there's no division between you and your opponent, so we're just all like shoved back there. Apparently, my opponent didn't like what he saw on me hitting mitts, so he left, walked out the building. I didn't know until I'm in the ring and they go to call him, and everyone's just kind of looking around, and then somebody runs out and they're like, "Hey, he left. I guess he didn't like what he saw when you were hitting mitts. He's not fighting." So just like unprofessional, goofy stuff like that would happen all the time back in the day. But yeah, like you said, I would try to tell people that I was an MMA fighter and they didn't even know what I was talking about. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, like cage fighting. They're like, no idea what you're talking about. Now it's everyone knows.
Did you envision that combat sports, specifically MMA, would blow up to what it is today?
Not really. I thought it would always kind of be like an underground thing, even when I saw my first UFC DVD that like kind of sparked my love for mixed martial arts. I never would imagine that it would be what it is today. It's incredible.
You know, we first got to sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I'm sorry. I just had a second thought. And then especially just how fast bare knuckle fighting has grown since 2018. I mean, it's taken over. And I mean, I'm a huge MMA fan and I used to watch so many UFCs, but now I'm like, I watch a UFC fight and I'm like, that's kind of cool, but I want to see some bare knuckle fights. Like it's the best, man. I love it.
If 15, 20 years ago, someone told you there'd be something like the BKFC and you'd be fighting in a bare knuckle boxing organization, what would have you told them?
I wouldn't believe that it was an actual legal sanctioned thing. Like I would believe it because it's something I'd always wanted to do. I used to street fight back in the day and I love fist fighting, but I never would have imagined that it would be a televised, fully legal sanctioned event. I would picture it like, in some dungeon somewhere, like underground. That I would believe, but not this. No, this is pretty incredible that it's a thing now.
So the first time we really got to see you in a mainstream setting was on The Ultimate Fighter, a show that's been around for so long, a show that's done so much for the sport of for the MMA as well as the UFC. What was your journey like to get there and how did you enjoy being on that show?
Dude, that was such a surreal moment in my life. I remember watching The Ultimate Fighter when I was, doing my best to get to the UFC, and I saw that show and I'm like, dude, how crazy would it be to be on this? It was a dream of mine. And then when I got the opportunity, I went to one of the tryouts and I made it through the whole process and I'm in the house. It was just the most surreal moment to I couldn't fathom it. Like, I'm here, I did it, and my story to get there was pretty crazy. My personal story, you might've seen it or heard it on different interviews, but so when I went to the tryouts, and I don't know if it's a very long process. Like they have different tryouts all over the world, and then you got to do a second tryout, and then blah blah blah. So I'm working at a decent job at the time in Northern Virginia, Booz Allen Hamilton. So I had a good job. I was training hard for fights, and I get this call from Gary DeFranco, senior producer on Spike TV. I thought it was my friend messing with me. He's like, hey, Dustin, Gary DeFranco, Spike TV, Ultimate Fighter. You made it through the second round. We're going to fly out to Vegas. I'm like, yeah, okay, buddy. And I hang up. He calls back and he's like, hey, Dustin, Gary DeFranco again. If you hang up again, I'm going to move to the next guy. So I was like, oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I thought you were a friend messing with me. He's like, don't worry about it. It happens every call. So he gave me all the information and said, we're going to fly you out. You do more interviews. You do all your medicals, make sure you're not on drugs or steroids. And then they do like a full body scan, make sure you're healthy. So I did that. And then a few months after that, I get a call again. And they're like, hey, you made it through. We're going to fly you out. You fight to get in the house. If you win, you're on the show. If you lose, you go back home. So after I get all that information, I find out the dates. It's 6 days after my wedding. So I had to cancel my honeymoon, quit my job because you're gone for 7 weeks. They're not going to hold my position. And then withdrew from school. I was doing online college. And all knowing that if I could totally lose my fight to get in the house and fly right back home the next day to no job, no honeymoon, and no school. So it was probably the most nerve-wracking thing in my life, that first fight, but absolutely worth it. My wife was incredible, super supportive. She's always been supportive. We've been together since my second amateur fight, and we're going on 17, 18 years together. And she's been a ride, the full ride, the whole journey. She's been with me. So, but yes, the Ultimate Fighter was a crazy time in my life. I'm very thankful I got to be a part of it.
And you did well on this show too. You got some wins in the house. Took on TJ Dillashaw, a guy now a lot looked at one of the greatest to do it. It's done a lot in the sport. Obviously, it didn't go your way, but what were some of the takeaways, from that contest?
I tell everybody, I knew usually when you fight somebody, I get a good read on people. I could not get a good read on TJ. I knew the moment I fought him, I'm like, this guy is next level. I'm not quite there yet. So I knew he was going to do well in the UFC. There was no doubt in my mind. I kind of figured that he'd be a future champ just because he was next level. And I feel honored that I went the distance with him. I know he's finished a lot of people in his career, top level guys. So yeah, it was a crazy experience. But yeah, I knew right away TJ was a stud of a fighter. So if you're going to have a loss, it's a good loss to have on your record to a next level UFC champ. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. So many people are watching combat sports now, whether between the bare knuckle promotions, whether it be, obviously UFC and the PFL. And one thing that we're really seeing in this new age of combat is how personality and entertainment driven this is. In all organizations, there's guys who put on facades. They play up this character because they know they're going to get a title shot. They're going to make money. The promoters absolutely love it. How do you feel that entertainment and personality has impacted combat sports?
I mean, it's huge, and you could see it. Like the guys like Conor McGregor, and I love to make people laugh and do stuff like that. But there's certain lines I won't cross. More so like the angry fighter, like smacking people, spitting around, just being the arrogant. I like to be a humble person. I don't know if I'd ever stoop to that level, but I mean, it pays. Like those cocky, arrogant fighters that are wild and they get the money. They build the pay-per-views and all that. But it's definitely something. If you want to be successful and well known, like the Patty Pimlets, you got to have some kind of charisma and character to do well and to be marketable. So it's definitely important. I mean, there's UFC champions that don't get much publicity because they're just kind of blah. They're great fighters, but they're like, he's not really TV worthy. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a huge part of being successful.
I think a big byproduct of this whole entertainment, personality-driven craze in combat sports is a term we call the casual fan. So these are the fans that are usually drunk. They like to go to B-dubs. They like to watch fights. They like to yell, twist them, and all these obscenities, have all these crazy takes. Overall, what do you think of these people? Is this just something that we're going to have to grow to love because it's good for the sport in general?
Yeah, viewers are always great. Like even my post today that BKFC, it was either today or yesterday, about me doing the Borat swimsuit, and I'm looking at all the comments. Everybody's just getting on me for the size of my penis. I'm like, if these dudes would ever, they would never in a million years say this to my face, but behind a keyboard, these guys are tough. But yeah, I've been to like viewing parties at bars, and like these guys that just if I was there, bro, shut up. You've never been on a fight in your life. Like, yeah, you gotta just let that go in one ear and out the other, because these sports are always going to have people like that. But like you said, we need them because they buy pay-per-views, they buy tickets, they build us up. So whatever, I'll just deal with them.
I think the casual fans, they look at the Mike Perrys of the world, the McGregors, the Kamaru Usmans, and they're like, wow, being a fighter, what a life. It's amazing. I see the fame, the glory of it. Little do they know, man, to get to the big shows, first off, battling it out on the regional scene, you're losing money. A lot of guys have to have a 9-to-5 job to fund it. Throw a wife in there. Throw kids in there. Throw getting up early, paying to train, missing weddings, birthdays, holidays, Thanksgivings, anniversaries, all this stuff just for the opportunity to chase that dream. You have been doing this for a very, very, very long time. What's made you keep punching and kicking forward for all these years?
I think the BKFC kind of revived things for me, because I was at the end of my MMA career after I lost my UFC contract, and I was doing like these little, East Coast shows, and it didn't give me that, it didn't scratch the itch, you know what I mean? And like you said, I didn't have time to travel to all these great gyms and great sparring partners. My wife would have supported it, but I didn't want to. Like, we started having children. We have 3 kids now. I want to be in their lives. I want to be the greatest father I could be. And I want to invest in my kids. I want to spend time with them, and I want to be the best husband I can be. And I can't do that and be at that top tier fighter level. It just can't happen. And to have a job, I'm a full-time police officer. You can't work. I work 10-hour shifts. I train twice a day. There's a small window to be an excellent shape fighter. So especially with mixed martial arts, like, you got to train so many different martial arts to be successful. Where BKFC, I have one art to train, boxing. So I do my strength and conditioning in the morning, and I do my boxing in the evenings, work around my schedule, my kids. So it's more manageable than it was back in the day, and doing so many different martial arts. But yeah, if you love it, you find the time. And I still have that itch, so I got to chase it. And I have the best supportive family and friends, so that definitely makes things a lot easier too.
The bare knuckle niche is still relatively a new thing. And, I think now it's obviously Conor McGregor and BKFC, you have bare knuckle MMA organizations. It's become a lot more culturally accepted. A lot of people absolutely love it. But, when you're talking 5-6 years ago, people were so kind of like, what is this? When you told people that you wanted to take the gloves off and you wanted to try bare knuckle boxing, what were some of those immediate reactions?
Well, I'll tell you first, my mom was a wreck. She's been a wreck my entire MMA career. She's like, really, Dustin? Now you're going to do bare knuckle? Are you trying to kill me? So yeah, my mom, my poor mom, God, she's so supportive, but I put her through a lot. It's very rough for her to watch me fight, especially bare knuckle. But yeah, a lot of people, they don't understand it. They're like, why would you want to do that? Like, why would you want to get punched bare knuckle? I'm like, I don't know. Some people are just bred for this. Like, I love it. It doesn't bother me to get punched. It doesn't bother me to get elbowed, kneed, like, that fires me up. I enjoy it. So it's a rare breed of people that enjoy it, and some people may not ever understand. I know there's a lot of people I talk to, and they're like, that doesn't make sense to me. And it won't,
I think one thing that people don't understand when it comes to bare knuckle, just because you're a great glove MMA guy, just because you're a great glove boxer, doesn't mean you're going to translate over positively if you take the gloves off and do bare knuckle. I feel like bare knuckle is a lot more mental, and the best way I can describe it, you have to have that dog in you to do bare knuckle. You have to have that grit. Do you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. If you don't have that dog in you, like, this sport is not for you. And it shows. The guys who, some of those lower level guys you've seen on BKFC, that they take that one good, strong punch to the face and they start feeling that blood, they're like, I'm done. So yeah, it's definitely I mean, there's guys that were good in MMA, came to bare knuckle, and it's just not for them. That bare knuckle changes the game.
One thing I think is so cool about bare knuckle is truly the most realist form of combat. When you think about it, when you have gloves on, that provides a false sense of reality. If you're throwing this thing like crazy and you break it in the first 30 seconds of a BKFC contest, your night's not going to end well. When you first made that transition, did you really have to think a little more strategically? When do I throw the 2? When do I throw the 3?
Probably more so after my first couple, because then you start feeling it, like, oh man, I didn't hit right on that. So there's a lot of precision shots you have to throw, but then again, that dog comes out, like we were talking about, and you get into, like, you root your feet and you start swinging, and then you don't care. You're just going all over the place. But yeah, precision and accurate throws are definitely a game changer in BKFC, because if you're just winging punches, you catch an elbow, or you hit wrong with your hand, that can definitely change a fight. A better fighter could lose with a broken hand. You know what I mean?
You've had some great performances in the BKFC. I think one of them I look back to, I think it was your first win in BKFC over Eddie Hotch. You were able to get a great first round knockout victory. What was that moment like for you?
Well, are you talking about the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the DQ because I hit him when he was down, but I still consider that a win. In my eyes, I'm 4-1. New York State Athletic Commission took that from me, but and even my opponent said he disagreed with it. It wasn't that last punch that did it in, but yeah, that was an amazing feeling, to get that quick victory and just be dominant over my opponent. That had me sold right away. I'm like, okay, bare knuckle is where I'm at.
I think for me, my favorite fight from your BKFC career is your contest against Joe Elmore. Obviously a guy who's a fan favorite, guy's a lot of fun to fight. You guys went on there and you guys put on a show. What were some of the takeaways from that contest?
I love Joe, man. We became really good friends. Even leading up to the fight, before we actually fought, we were good buds. Like, we would message each other, and so I earned a lot of respect for him before the fight, just as a human being, but also after that fight. That boy's got a hard head, and he can hit pretty hard. So I was happy to get the unanimous decision. I wanted to finish him because Joe's a hard guy to finish. Even a knockdown, he's a tough dude. I did go into that fight with a pretty bad shoulder injury midway. I was really tweaked my shoulder during that fight, which I ended up getting surgery after that fight. But I don't know if that would have changed the game at all. But regardless, he's a phenomenal fighter, very tough dude. He's definitely got that dog in him. He could take a licking and keep on ticking. So
coming up, you're fighting out Asndrew Angelcore. You got to do a big main event, Philadelphia. When you were pitched this idea of headlining a show for another really tough guy who's found a lot of success in this bare knuckle environment, were you pretty stoked?
Oh, very stoked. I mean, the fight against JD Burns that fell through, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I think it sucked that I didn't get a fight at the Wells Fargo Center. I mean, that was a beautiful packed arena. So that kind of sucked. That was a hard pill to swallow, sitting in the stands watching that. But I think it would have been, I hate saying this, but I think it was a very, very winnable fight against JD Burns. I think we were just a little out. I was a little outclassed, or I would have outclassed him. Where Angelcore, I think he's a much more talented fighter. He's a tough dude. He's got good boxing technique, can take a punch. I think this is more my level of an opponent, and I think it's definitely a main event quality. So I'm very much looking forward to fighting Asndrew.
When I first saw this one, I got super excited. There's a lot of dog in this one, in my opinion, from both sides. Both of you guys very technical in your boxing. Both of you guys don't go backwards, you just go forward. Are you expecting maybe a dog fight here?
I think so, yeah. And I think we have the small ring that's going to happen. Freddie! It's my neighbor. Yeah, I think the small ring's going to kind of force the issue to make it a dog fight, which I'm looking forward to. I love rooting my feet down and throwing bombs. So, and I know Andrew does as well. So it's going to be a bloody mess. It's going to be a war, and it's going to be fight of the night. I'm telling you that right now.
You're coming off of a loss over Carlos Trinidad Snake, a guy who's now fighting for a title against Austin Trout. Feel like a big win over Angelcore. Does that maybe potentially give you a title shot next?
I don't know if it puts me right back into a title shot. There's some big names in the welterweight division. I'd like to say that selfishly, but realistically, I don't think it's going to put me where I need to be. I think a couple more. This fight's definitely going to be a big win. And then I think maybe one or two more before I'm back in that title spot. So, but I'm rooting for Trinidad. Obviously, you lose to a guy, you want to see him do well. So, but he's a tough dude. He's a great boxer. So I can't really say how that's going to go.
No, absolutely. BKFC obviously, really blowing up. Big thing that happened, Conor McGregor now, one of the owners of Bare Knuckle, and now these shows are absolutely packed. I mean, they were before, but there's so much more extra attention. You really feel like the sky's the limit for this organization?
I think so, man. It's for it to grow this fast since 2018 is incredible. I mean, UFC it took them a lot longer, and obviously the combat sports world was kind of evolved by the time BKFC came around, but I mean, look at all the celebrities and the ex-UFC guys, Bellator guys, all these fighters that want to be a part of this. Because, I mean, what's better than two individuals fist fighting? Like, it's even most of the people that watch MMA, they love a fight that stays on their feet and swing punches. So now we take the gloves off, it makes it even more badass and fun to watch. So, I think it's going to be the sky's the limit for sure.
I think Chris Lytle said it best. I asked him once about the casual fans, and he said, all a casual fan is a fan who hasn't watched BKFC yet.
Exactly. That's right.
For you, what's the goal in this stage of your career? What's your goal?
I'm getting old, man. I enjoy fighting. You got to edit this part out, but I would fight for free. Don't tell BKFC that. But I love fighting. And obviously I'm a very, very competitive person. So I always want to be the best at what I do. So my eyes are set on getting that title shot and being a champion. Whether or not that's in God's plans for me, I don't know, but I'm gonna push for it.
Awesome. All right, Dustin.
Before I get too old.
There you go. Last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome on March 21st when you headline BKFC Philly against Asndrew Angelcore?
Oh, perfect outcome. I would say it goes long enough to make the fans happy. So let's say third round, TKO finish, Dustin the Disciple, Pague. Yeah, let's go with that. And just a beautiful bloody mess, but we both leave healthy. Just a little scraped up.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Dustin, dude, I really think I agree with you. I think this is going to be fight of the night. This is one of the BKFC fights I've been most excited for in a very long time. I really appreciate your time, my friend. I wish you nothing but the best.
Hey, Carl, I appreciate you having me on, man. God bless you. Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. That's it for us tonight. I'm Carlo Peruzza. He is the Disciple. He is Mr. Dustin Pague. You watch him, BKFC Philly taking on Asndrew Angelcore. It's going to be fight of the night. Take it easy, fight fans.